Well, good morning. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. How are you all today? Are you preparing for the future? That's the question. And I bet many of you are not. And I think probably most preppers are not. And I'm going to explain that. And it's leaving a giant hole in their preparedness. Before we get started, a reminder that the entire Stonemont, this is very exciting, the entire Stonemont series, my books, are now available on Audible. People have been asking for them to be on Audible for years. They are now on Audible through Amazon or through Audible, whatever. We got those up there, and I'm not really into the tech stuff, to be honest. That's one of the things that I want to talk about, by the way, because it's a shortcoming on my part. But yes, they are. The Reversion, the Revival, the Renewal and Appeal to Heaven, the Blessings of Freedom, and Hostages to Fortune. You can get them on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, or now Audible. You can get them from me in paperback, but I can't get it. Well, no, actually, I am reading the Audible over on the Stonemont level of the Patreon channel. So if you're, those of you who are following me on that, great to have you. May I ask also one thing before we get started? Apparently, I am now convinced the channel's under attack. Simply because I thought, well, I'm a small channel. I don't have that many subscribers. It's just probably because I'm not that interesting. I'm not flamboyant. I don't try to scare people. But now enough people have told me. One person said they've been unsubscribed from the channel 10 times. They didn't do it. They find out they're unsubscribed. I had another person tell me they were unsubscribed twice in 1 hour. I just had a person tell me that they have to resubscribe every time they want to watch one of our videos. So obviously we're being suppressed. I don't know why. I have a suspicion as to being why, as probably some of the comments that have been left on here in the past that I've asked people not to make those. I don't know. But obviously it is. So if I could ask you to make sure that you are subscribed, leave a comment, even if it's just a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm, I am told. And what did I say? Make sure you're subscribed. And share this, if you would. Share this with other people. The more shares they get, the more apparently it helps. And I don't mind if you share anything that I put out. I mean, that's my purpose here is to share. You know, this is not how I make my living. I'm a writer, okay, and I have several businesses, so this isn't how I make my living. But my purpose is to get the message and information and advice on preparedness out to as many people as possible, because I think, they're going to need it. So go ahead and share anything that you see of mine on here or on YouTube or on Patreon. Feel free to share it. Okay, are you preparing for the future? Of course, Steve. What else would we be preparing for except the future? A horrible, horrible future. Okay, let's start there. Do you remember when the first internal combustion engine came out? Well, most of you do. Maybe a couple of you do. I don't know. Some of you older than I am. No, none of you do. But you remember hearing about it, right? The internal combustion engine comes out. And they put it on these contrivances on wheels that allow it to drive around. And people said, I wouldn't have one of those. If God meant man to go around on wheels, he would have put wheels on them. I'm going to go around on a horse. That'll never fly. That'll never take off. That's why we're all still riding horses, right? Okay, yeah. And that'll never fly and that'll never take off. Probably something that the Wright brothers heard, isn't it? That'll never fly, that'll never take off. What in the world are you guys thinking of? And of course, that's why none of us have ever ridden in an airplane. Isn't that true? Right? I remember when I was a young man on the police department, we still carried revolvers, the old wheel guns, right? Nobody would carry an autoloader. Why? Ah, those pieces of junk, they'll jam on you. I sure wouldn't want one of those if my life depended on it. And that's why all the police still use old revolvers, right? Well, of course not. Of course not. I'll tell you what the lesson is here, and I'll tell you where people are falling down. And why a lot of people, and I want to just kind of adjust your thinking here. Okay. Because I think that there is this, and I call it, it's a truism. There are certain things within the preparedness mindset and world that constrain people. Okay, they are accepted by people. They hear them so much that the same types of things are going over so much that they become ingrained in the people, and preparedness gets locked in to that constraint. Okay, not everybody, but I think that most preparedness-minded people. Well, let me back up. No, most preparedness-minded people may not be like that, but most preppers are, and there is a distinction there in my mind. A prepper is one of those that well, I won't get into it. Maybe I'll do another one on that. You can have your own definitions of those, and they might differ from mine. It's okay. Well, interestingly enough, the other day I put up something on, and here's where I realize a lot of people are not preparing for the future. I hope it's not you, but check this out. The other day I put up something about the new Tesla Cybertruck, which I found very interesting. My son had told me about it. He spent about an hour telling me all about it, and I looked into it quite a bit, and I posted it on the daily chat on Patreon. If you're not with us on Patreon, why not? You should be. You'll get so much out of it. The link's down below. Come join us, and every day, except on weekends, I'll start off with a subject or a daily chat and just kind of get it rolling, and everybody just kind of, chats throughout the day and chats with each other and whatever. It's a great feature. It's really turned out to be good. And so I put this over there, and of course there were a number of people that found it very interesting. I said, this is good. But what I was surprised at, and maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, I'll say what I found interesting were the number of people who, instead of seeing the future possibilities of it, concentrated or addressed the current limitations of it. And I said, wow, that was a surprise. You see, that's like somebody seeing the down at Kitty Hawk, right? Seeing the Wright brothers fly their first little plane, however far it wasn't very far, and saying, well, I can't fly to Europe on that, so the heck with that, right? Right. Or the first time they saw a horseless carriage, I'm not having one of that. How far can it go on whatever kind of gasoline you have? And there's not gas stations everywhere in the world, right? And so where am I going to get gas? And a horse can eat hay and grass. I'm sticking with a horse. Well, I'm kidding on the square. We used to call it kidding on the square. I'm being a little facetious, but I'm pointing out. What did Rush used to say? I forget. One of you will know that. It was ludicrous. Wasn't the word? It was I point out the silliness of something by being silly. But silly wasn't the word either. You guys are smart. You'll know what it is. Put that down there. Remind me, because it was a great quote of Rush's. Yesterday was his birthday, by the way. Here's to you, Rush. And I just put up a bunch of stuff about Ronald Reagan, by the way, over on the American Reversion channel. Inspiring. If you want to remember what inspirational leadership was, and you're not with us on American Reversion, come on over and listen to that one today that I just put up. I know that's horrible video making. Continue to talk while I bring the cup up in front of my mouth and you can't hear me. Well, I'm a writer, not a speaker. So I found that interesting. And what, so, because to me, preparedness, and I think it should be, I think it should be to you too, is not just preparing to be able to live as we lived in the past in case everything collapses, but considering the possibilities of what might come and preparing for that. You know, there is a chance, well, in my mind, there is a certainty that at some point everything will collapse. I mean, that's why I wrote my books, right? Big collapse of everything. I mean, the scientists tell us there is a certainty we're going to get hit by a CME. That's going to take everything down because of the technological advancement of our world. Okay. When? When is that going to happen? I don't know. Could happen before I finish this video. It could not happen in your lifetime or my lifetime or in the lifetime of our children. It will happen. But we don't know when. Okay. But we are assured that until that happens, we are going to be living in a continually evolving and improving, and some would argue whether it's an improvement or not, and I understand that argument, technological world. And if you're not preparing for that, in my mind, you're not preparing. If you're preparing for what could happen instead of what is most certainly going to happen, how much preparing are you actually doing? See, we prepare for things, what could be, and for what things we know will be, right? We're going out on a boat. We put on a life jacket, right? Okay. But we also, if a big storm's coming with rain, we'll take a raincoat or an umbrella or something like that. We know that's going to happen. Dealing with life in the evolving world properly, intelligently, with an eye on what's coming and being prepared for it is the real responsibility of preparedness. And refusing that, putting blinders on that, I don't think is. So I think a lot of preppers, as opposed to preparedness-minded people. You know, I know a lot of people who are prepared for it all to collapse, but they are also prepared. And I've talked about this for a while on the financial channel, because I couldn't get people to understand. Well, I could. Many people understood, but there were too many people, and I'm trying to save the ones who don't understand. That while you live in a world, I know I'm taking a sidetrack here, but I'll get back. While you live in a world where finances are important, if you aren't paying attention to your finances, if you are not building your financial preparedness, i.e. wealth, you're not preparing. You're hiding. You're hiding from what you should be. You are wishing that the world were different. It's like those people who won't use debit cards or credit cards, won't have a bank account, won't do this, won't do that. Hey, if you're not going to live in the world you live in, okay, I mean, it's your choice. And certainly it's not up to me to tell you you should do something different. But I'll just tell it this, that this world is an amazing place, and it has many opportunities that you are keeping yourself from being able to enjoy and exploit. And that is true preparedness. So getting back on the track that I promised I'd get back on, are you really preparing? Are you conscious of accepting how our technological world is going to continue to evolve and preparing for that? Or are you simply seeing the problems and the limitations of the current whatever it may be, technology, right? I remember I told this story before. You know, when I started my first magazine, it wasn't a martial arts magazine. It was something else. I did it on a typewriter. You know what I used to say? This was in the late 90s. Other people had computers. I know. I didn't. You know what I used to say? And I mean, I laugh at myself for saying this. Well, I don't need a computer. What do I need a computer for? I can do fine on a typewriter. I'm doing fine on a typewriter. I don't need that computer stuff that nobody understands, and it crashes all the time, and it takes forever to get up on dial-up, and all. I don't need that kind of stuff. That's stupid. You know. Do you remember those old guys, that the old crotchety ones that say, I don't need electric windows. Who the heck who can't roll up their own window? Electric windows is just something else to break. I'm going to stick with this hand crank that I know will work, right? And of course, that's why none of us have electric windows now, right? Okay, you know what I'm getting at. Hey, if you're thinking about real preparedness, allow yourself to consider what is coming. This isn't about buying a Tesla. And even the other ones weren't, because I asked. This is about technology. If you aren't preparing yourself to do better in an increasingly technological world, you're not preparing for probably 90% of what you could be living in the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years. Now, I'm all for preparing for the collapse. You know, I mean, that's why I wrote 6 books, right? I wrote 6 books on that. Collapse. Everything. We go, and I'll be honest with you. I would prefer to live in this world. I really would. Many people have said they would prefer to live in the Stonemont world. If you haven't read them, you should. It's a great story, and it's packed full of preparedness and survival lessons, how to prepare for, survive, and rebuild after a major, total collapse of everything. I would rather live in this world. I'll be honest, I'd do better in this world, I think, you know, and many people would. But this is not the world we are, and people read these to learn from and to enjoy, to immerse themselves in this world. You'll love it. But this is not the world we're living in. And until this happens, it's not the world we're going to live in. So let me just leave you with this question. Would you rather prepare for something that may not happen in your lifetime? Or would you rather prepare for something that is assured to happen every day for the rest of your life until the big one comes? To me, that's a question that seems silly to even ask. So anyway, really ask yourself, are you preparing? Are you really preparing for the future? Maybe this puts a different spin on it when I asked at the beginning.